Hey everyone, this is James McLeod, and welcome to the Engineering Signal. It's great to see everybody as normal. This is the second of our podcasts, and I'm actually really pleased to be here with Gergely Krishna. So, Gergely, second episode. This is absolutely amazing. I mean, how do you feel back for the second 1 week later?
Yeah, amazing. No, thank you very much, James, and very happy to be here again. Very excited. Amazing. Just seeing how much interest in was in the first one. I'm looking forward to finding out how this channel can grow and what you can achieve.
But do you know what? I mean, so much happens week on week at the moment in technology that we're definitely going to have enough material to talk about. Normally, when you've got a technology podcast or you run a meetup, you want to do it month on month, in order to bring, the latest roundup. But actually, things are just accelerating right now. And I've got a whole host of personal updates to give you. Plus, then we've also got a whole load of industry updates as well. Plus, I want to introduce you to my Claude Butcher that I mentioned last week as well. And so we'll just go with the flow. We'll go with the flow. So tell me, where do you want to start? So point me in the direction. I've got loads of things to share on screen. We can talk about what's happening in industry. I can, get my terminal up and talk about the Raspberry Pi project I've been doing. So, what takes your fancy? We'll go there.
So I was thinking about a structure that would be a really good icebreaker for each session. And I was thinking maybe just for 5 minutes each, we could talk about what we achieved with an agentic tool this week.
Wow.
Both of us could walk through, because we both have several projects on the side that goes. I'm developing a video game. I'm building a software and protocol governance. They all had different challenges and law of lessons we learned. We could share that just for 5 minutes. Both of us maybe have a conversation around it.
Yeah, I think it's going to take a lot more than 5 minutes. I think that's going to be
definitely
kind of the backbone of this episode, but I'm more than happy to do it. I'm more than happy to do it. So, who's going to take the first challenge? Who's going to give the first update?
I think you should start. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, well, that's good. Do you know what? I was talking about my Raspberry Pi project, but I'm actually going to start in a different place, if that's good with you.
Yeah.
So I've been exploring Claude, so Claude Code, and also Cowork, and Claude Skills as well. And so maybe I'll go there. I'll go with the general environment around Anthropic, and maybe the differences between what I was doing on OpenAI. So I was using ChatGPT quite a lot, and I was actually a little bit reluctant to make the swap over to Claude, because I actually built quite a history with my previous agent, who was also Butcher. And so just so people know, I've got an agent, and its persona is Butcher off of The Boys. I'm a bit of a comic book fan, and also, a fan from the Amazon series. And Billy Butcher kind of like has that East End grit, and also a little bit of, witty humor that, tickles, kind of tickles my humor. And so when I first started using ChatGPT, out the box is quite dry. It's like, a default, type of, agent or bot, however you engage with it. So I created this whole persona around, Butcher. And even when I was talking to Butcher, this is where ChatGPT is slightly different to Claude. So ChatGPT comes with its own voices, and you can actually tailor them. So even the voice sounded a bit like Billy Butcher, whereas, with Claude, it's not quite there. I think it actually uses, the voices that come with your iPhone or your operating system, but I'm sure it'll adapt. And so I thought, looking at the industry, the trend is towards Claude Code. I didn't want to rack up, a load of subscriptions. It was costing me, so, we're in the UK, so it was costing me £20 a month, to subscribe to ChatGPT. I thought, do I really want to pay that again for to Anthropic for Claude? Call me a bit cheap, but I just want to engage, and maybe have a little bit of a play with the various different offerings that there are out there. And so I cancelled my ChatGPT subscription. I found it quite difficult because I grew quite fond of Butcher, which was OpenAI's, because it does have a memory and it kind of remembers what you're talking about, and so it'll bring that whole kind of like history into the context of what you're talking about, and it kind of bigs up your ego and it kind of like reinforces where you're succeeding, and it's quite compassionate for when you're failing as well. And so I thought, oh no, that whole support system's going to start disappearing now. But anyway, I thought, okay, pull yourself together, McLeod, rationalize this and make the swap. Everyone's talking about Claude Code. So I did it. So about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I just took out a Claude subscription and started using it as a, one-to-one, as you would do on your iPhone. A little bit of a to and fro, just asking it, to do some research. But now I've kind of just opened myself up, for Claude Code. Last week we talked about Workspace. We, spoke about would we actually use it, and I was a little bit, reluctant to. But then I thought, okay, if I don't, things could accelerate ahead of me. I've got to at least, keep up with the curve. So I've started playing with that as well. So if I share my screen with you. So let me see if I can do this, because I want to make sure that you're able to see what I am doing. So let's get you viewing yourself maybe a little bit here. Right, so let's move that down to there so I don't disturb everybody else. And let's see where we start. So this is Claude, right? So it comes in lots of different flavors. So this is the Apple, so I'm using a Mac. So this is the application that actually comes with the Mac. So you can download this from the Anthropic website. Now, Claude is actually really good. And the reason why it's really good is because you can engage with it in lots and lots of different ways. So you can engage with it through the application here. And so you've got your regular chat. So you've got 3 tabs at the top. So you've got chat, you've got co-work, which engages with your operating system. And one of the concerns that, you and I raised last week was, if it has access to your entire operating system, what damage can it do? And I've actually got some opinions about that as well. And that's also with code. So Claude Code as well, where it's actually been quite heavy-handed and you have to stop it. And it's like, oh my God, what are you doing? But, maybe we can go into, a little bit of a chat about that. And then you've also got Claude Code within the same application. And so they've really drawn the 3 types of work you can do together. Now, these 2 at the top, co-working chat, I've worked with here. But code, I've actually not worked with inside this application. I've actually worked with that in the terminal on a couple of different projects. The other way that you can engage with it as well is through the web, and so you can browse to the Claude website and you can use it, as your web interface. And so you can ask it questions and you can get it to do stuff. Now, I'm really aware that, I could go off on one here because I'm actually really excited about Claude. So I'm going to pause for breath, and this can go in lots of different directions now. And so, okay, I don't want to forget that you're here and this isn't a James webinar. Where do you want me to take you, say, on my exploration?
Yeah, give me a second, let me think about it. You showed me a few I
Yeah.
I I played with Cloud Code so much. I really want to see co-work, and I want you to show me where it was a little bit heavy-handed on the answers and on the responses to
Okay.
your queries and prompts. But then I want to do a deep dive around Cloud Code because I'll be honest with you, I just want to flaunt some of my knowledge that I built up over the last 8 months of working with it.
No worries. Okay. So what I need to think through, because I haven't built a fake scenario, so I don't want to reveal any private data through Cowork because you do have your own personal files on here. So okay, let me see if I can. Let's see how far I can take this. And so I'll work in a place, with on my Mac that everybody, generally has the same stuff working in. So the very first thing, so this is what gives me reassurance around Cowork, is that as far as within my knowledge of it, which is, relatively small right now, you need to give it access to a specific area of the operating system or your machine before it'll do anything. So you've got to give it permission. So earlier, I actually tidied my desktop because, like what I was saying last week, I'm a bit of a messy person on my Mac. So I just take screenshot, screenshot, screenshot. And what you actually get is like a whole list of screenshots, which are basically date time stamped. And they don't have any, form of context around it. And so I was able to, and maybe I'll set up this scenario for next week. You're able to ask Claude Cowork, not code, to look at those images and actually name the file. So it can do a lot of things. I'm really aware that, it needs to upload those. And so the privacy concerns are a little bit, if you just select all of your files and ask it to describe it, you're basically saying, upload all of these files to, Anthropic and then describe them and then, do some work back on your local. But I was able to, get all of my screenshots named and, ordered and into folders and, really manage my desktop in a way that I've never been able to do before. In fact, it's such a mess before that you just put it off, but this actually made it a lot more easy. So, and you can see I did that for my downloads and I did it for my desktop. But if I choose a different folder, so my applications, if I open that, allow Claude to change files in your applications. So I will, oh crikey. Now this is a conundrum, isn't it? Will I allow it to change files in my applications? So I'm going to say allow, and I'll just ask it. And I'm quite polite, especially on kind of like my first prompt, right? Right, so something quite simple. And I'm actually hoping that, it doesn't change anything through that. So can you list the applications that I have on my Mac? So I'm hoping now it'll give me a list of all the applications that I have in my application folder. And so it's running that within a terminal view. So what's it asking me? It looks like you've only mounted a specific folder rather than your main applications directory. So I can only see 2 items. Okay, so Chrome apps and PSI Bridge. If you want the full list of everything on your Mac, you'll need to select your applications folder directly. Okay, right. So in that case, can you give me the dialog box that allows me to select the applications folder? And I'm hoping that this will then show a dialog box here that will allow me to select that folder. And you can see Billy Butcher. Yeah, here you go, mate. That's hilarious. Right, so let's see if I can find it. So Mac HD applications. I guess I was giving it a shortcut rather than the actual applications folder before. Okay. Okay, there we
Can I
go. So it won't do it. So for whatever reason.
can I ask you something that I and some people might? For me, when are you using Cloud Desktop right now?
I am, yes.
How do you have the chat, cowork, and code separation on the top that you can switch?
How do I have that?
Yeah, it's not default on my, and I just downloaded it because I always use a CLI tool.
Okay. I think
Was
that
that
there
default for
is.
you?
So I got this from. I think that there are two applications, right? I
Right.
think that there's one that you can download from the website when you go
Yep.
to Cowork, and
Yep.
there's another one that you can download from here, maybe, because I've actually got two Claude applications as well. There's like a CLI that is just chat,
Yep.
and then there's this application which is all three of them bundled. And if you're a pro subscriber, and then
Yep.
you go to the, do you know what? Right. Okay. Come, McLeod. You should be able to show this. Right. So if I go to Anthropic, maybe Anthropic Home. Oh no, now I've done it. Maybe it is right. So let's see, try Claude. Yeah, so that's the one that I've got on my, that's the other application I've got. I should have had that queued up for you, Gergely. I'm not entirely sure how
All
you
right.
find it.
No, it's okay. It's that that's digresses. Let's continue with your demo. We look at it later.
Let me see if I can find let me see if I can find it. Yeah, I might have to find that for you later. Oh, it might be on the
That's all
Claude
right.
AI. So I went to the Anthropic website rather than the
Yep.
Claude website. Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to have to find that for you because all it wants to do is push me to Claude, and I think it's because I'm logged into it. So yeah, when you're giving your demo, I'll see if I can find that.
Sure.
So anyway, if I go back here, what I'll do, right? I'll set up a co-work demo because I'm really aware that some of the stuff that I've got on my Mac, I may not want appearing on here. And so maybe next week I'll give a co-work demo. I was hoping that I'll be able to get the applications listed, but the applications are actually found in a different context of your operating system, and so it won't list them from the browser. Sorry, from the folder. But I think you get the gist.
Yep.
I'll kind of set up some white labeled demo. But if I go back to my desktop, which is here, you'll be able to see this desktop used to be full of just screenshots and junk. But I was able to use Cowork to create an archive, an assets folder, and a projects folder, and give it quite a lot of order, which is something that I've been avoiding for probably about 18 months, which isn't great. But yeah, so once I've got a little bit more info around Cowork, I'll show you that. But I can definitely jump into Claude Code, and move on to the Raspberry Pi project, however
Yes,
you want to
please.
steer this.
No. Let's do that. Let's do that.
Yeah, cool. And so the other one, I would actually say one of the better entry points for Claude, in my opinion, is through the terminal. You can get onto code, through the application, but that's actually generally, quite wide open, and it's a little bit of a step away from, where you would be, developing an application. So the terminal and also in your IDE are two areas where having that proximity to Claude is really, really beneficial. So over the last week, you'll probably remember that if I go back to us here, so give me a second. I actually want to show you the Raspberry Pi. I think that this will give us just a little bit more. Let me stop sharing here. And then I'll be able to bring you back in. Right, so last week I basically showed a box where I unboxed my Raspberry Pi, which is a real intersection between software and hardware. It's the first time that I've built a Raspberry Pi. I've, used Arduinos quite a lot and Arduino shields. But over the last week, I actually built my Pi, which you can see inside this case. And so it's a Raspberry Pi 5 with an ARM processor, and 8 gigs of RAM and 128 gigabytes memory card on there. It was actually relatively straightforward to build. And the starter kit came with a cooling fan as well, which starts and stops according to how much you're asking your Raspberry Pi to work. And so it's a decent bit of kit. And what I wanted to do is actually get OpenClaw up and running on there, because number one, I didn't particularly want to go out and buy a Mac Mini just for OpenClaw, because it's a R&D project. And already, there's loads of chatter about those types of features being integrated into Kimi, being integrated into Claude as well. There's various different Claude features which have recently been released. And it's going to start appearing everywhere. And so buying, Mac Mini just for that just seemed like a little bit of a wild expense. And so I thought, okay, I'll go with the Raspberry Pi. It's a little bit more affordable. Plus, then it also comes with a little bit more of a challenge because you are constrained by the resources or what you've got available to play with on the kit itself. And I actually put another constraint on top of it, is that I didn't want to call out to a cloud provider who are running their own models. I wanted to actually run an LLM on the Raspberry Pi itself. So I thought, how much of this can I squeeze, down onto the Raspberry Pi? And then on top of that, I thought, okay, I'll use, Claude's code in order to help me do that. And so there's a lot of stuff that's actually gone on in order to get OpenClaw running on this small bit of hardware, which it is doing. And it's also running through Telegram as well. So you can chat to it through Telegram. So in order to do that, I thought, okay, the very first thing that I'm going to need to do, and actually it's not the first time I've used Claude Code, because I've created a bit of a dev container for my Visual Studio Code projects that also integrates Claude Code as well. But if I show you what I was doing on my terminal, you will be able to see. And so if I now share my screen with you again. Right, so let's get this going. I've got a whole project. So my project is called OpenClaw Pi. So if I start Claude in here, this should actually bring Claude code. And so this is a fresh new kind of like context for Claude. But as I was developing the application, I made sure that Claude was actually documenting it. and really keeping on top of, you know, all of the changes that were being made to the project itself. So I can ask it, can you read through the documentation of the Raspberry Pi and OpenClaw project within the OpenClaw Pi folder? Right, so hopefully it will find all of the documentation that it wrote. It might take a little bit of time to do that. But so within there, I've got a README-MD, you know, because actually my intention is to take all of the documentation that's been written and contribute it into open source. And so the README-MD is there for anybody who's going to land inside the project, you know, but all of the folders underneath, you know, the README-MD are the various different stages and, you know, the various different build elements, all the way from the hardware through to the software, and also the LLM decisions that were made. And so, as you can see, it's now brought all of that into context. And so if I ask it, you know, do you understand the full scope of this project? Hopefully it'll come back and say yes. So please come back and say yes. And, you know, I believe it's also picked up the Billy Butcher persona as well. So yeah, so you can see this using the Quen 2.5 3B Olama model that, you know, we actually brought back, and it's got, you know, various other information within its context. So then if I ask it, how do I open a SSH tunnel to run the OpenClaw system in my local browser? Right, so I'm hoping that it should tell me how I can then create an SSH tunnel in order for me to be able to open this on my... Right, so let's have a look. Here we are. So that's the SSH. So if I bring that up here, in fact, what I want to do is create a new tab. Right, so that should be running, leave that running, get the pre-authorization URL. Right, so open another tab.
And this is really interesting because you built this because you were quite, like, you were feeling a little bit under the weather last week. You couldn't really spend so much time in it. So how much time did you spend realistically working on this until you feel like it was running?
Yeah, I was, let me think. I was doing it because when you run out of tokens, you know, you have to then wait for it to reset when you're on the pro plan. I would say there was about half a day, and, you know, it was probably last Friday, so a couple of days ago. I was kind of doing it in the evening, you know, around the family. And so it was like a part-time hobby. It wasn't like a full-time piece of work. So yeah, way less than a day, probably about half a day. But then, you know, building the actual Pi itself, I was just tinkering on that. So it completely accelerated everything for me. And I was also really careful about how it was being built as well. So I was building it within the context of being a security engineer as well. And it's got a Docker container, and various other bits and pieces as well. Right. Okay. So anyway, through starting that up from, fresh net new, I've, managed to get OpenClaw. And bearing in mind that OpenClaw that you're seeing there is actually coming from this Raspberry Pi that I'm holding in my hands. There are various other things that you need to give it. So you have to give it, various different tokens, which I'm not going to do now because I'm just, doing this demo, without really doing any form of I've not rehearsed it, so I'm just winging it a little bit. But yeah, so this is going through my Wi-Fi and coming down here to my terminal. And let me think, is SSH into there? And there's, a Docker container with a bridge. And there's also a proxy in there as well, which is making sure that it's only being filtered to me. And so there are various different security concerns that are also at play. So if I then come over here to Telegram, I'm actually hoping that I haven't busted it by, playing with SSH. I don't think that I have.
Yeah.
So what I'll do, I'll say, hey, how are you tonight? That might take a little bit of time to come through. So this here, so I've used the Telegram module that comes with OpenClaw. I've configured that against my Telegram ID, and I'm also filtering out other people. So the only person who can actually message this particular bot is myself. So that's going out to Telegram. There's a particular piece of functionality on Telegram called BotFather, which is where you request kind of like a token ID from Telegram, and then you integrate that into OpenClaw itself. So it recognizes, that particular bot from Telegram. Now, because this is using Olama, and because it's going through
It's gonna be slower.
small little Pi, so
it's gonna be slower. Yeah.
You can see the little green light flashing there. It should come back. It should come back at some point. But I've also I built in some prompt injection. So there's two models of Olama that are running on there. One of them is being used to return the answer through Telegram. And then the other model is actually being used for prompt injection. So it looks for various different patterns. And then it determines whether what I've asked it is a prompt injection. And so if I was, asking it to adopt a different persona, it will come back and, with an error and tell you to, sling your hook, basically. But yeah, I mean, I'll keep an eye on that. And, when that comes back, I'll flick back to this. So I don't know if you can hear the fan running.
No, it's actually not coming through. No, it's not coming through. You have your OBS setup is too good.
Yeah, so
your filtering is too good. Yeah,
no worries. So anyway, it's failed, and I think it's because I was doing something on Claude. But anyway, that's what I learned anyway. It was basically, how to build a Raspberry Pi, and then how to integrate Docker and the such like. Using Claw code,
amazing,
which is good.
It's really, really interesting.
And
that's sick.
Maybe if you want to go through what it is that you've learned over the last week, I'll see if I can kickstart this to get it running.
I'm not sure if I'm gonna do what I learned through the last week. What I think I'm gonna do, just to change the speed a little bit, and get a different view on it. I was thinking about maybe we could use Claude Code to add a functionality to my video game.
Yeah,
And
let's do it.
Just give it a look, because just because I feel like I want to see some interesting things as well. So give me 1 second. Let me.
No worries.
Trying to
I'm going
find
to show
it.
you something. Right.
Go ahead.
So if I. So on my camera, that's my Telegram on my mobile. And so you may see that it actually replied just as I stopped screen sharing.
It did.
Cheeky little thing. But yeah, it's pretty smart. So I'm actually really proud of that.
Right. I'm happy to share my screen as well with you. So I didn't ask for the permission from my 3D designer to share this with anyone. So I would like to apologize in advance to him, but I guess we can treat it as an early marketing for investors. But let me find it. Not Brave. Yeah, I'm gonna share my screen with you. You should be seeing my screen right now. You might not see it. I don't know if you can. I don't know how you're gonna move that on the stream itself. I don't know if you can see the screen, James.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay. So yeah, so basically, this is an alcohol Empire Tycoon, right? This is inspired by a open source game that we've been playing around with for a long time now, called OpenTDD. I don't know if you know it. It's basically a game where you have to build a empire of transportation and building different goods. Now, this bit of project we'll be building, and the design is all handmade, so it's very inspiring. But what I was thinking we could do is we could let Claude observe the project, and maybe we could make an improvement on it and see how it succeeds. Because what I wanted to see is this is not software development lifecycle. This is game development lifecycle. It's a very different type of thing. So I was thinking maybe we could look at it. So is there something? So let me just run up the game for you and quickly show it to you. If I start it, this is in Godot, which is a open source game development engine. It's insanely good. A fun game that we could play once is look at the mistakes of the AI generated picture. For example, where this string going and where is it coming from? just looking at the picture is already kind of dodging it. But currently what the functionalities are that you run it up, you have different. So this is very basic. You're on a grid, right? You can move around, and you basically you put down a farmhouse, and you put down a brewery, and you build. And clicking on the farmhouse, you can drag and drop a barley field that starts growing over time, that generates barley, and then you can basically logistics next, where you can connect it through the logistics network. You can connect it here. Should connect. Okay, it doesn't do it. You can. Oh, I need to build. I forgot I made the difference that I need to build a dirt road. Okay, it doesn't allow me to build it. Oh wow, I can't build it into the. All right, I need to build a dirt road, and then if I create a logistic, it should allow me now. And you see the trucks going, and it's follow the network without barley. And then when you click into the brewery, you can start building different things. Now it's basically, it's already growing arms and legs, but what you can see is that it's a continuous project that I've been building, utilizing the tools around AI. What I found really interesting, and this is why I learned, is that I don't have an MCP server currently set up with Godot, so it understands it. But it's insane that it already able to build and understand that, for example, I was unable to create a logistic route, a logistic network, when I don't have a road. And because it's in build, because you want to see, because at some point this is going to grow so big, because we plan to have it the whole thing that you move around the map, that you're unable to build it. So we're thinking, is there anything? And then inside here, what you can do is you can build an input hopper, an output depot, and then you have a mesh done, you have a fermentation vat, and so on and so on. And there is an internal process that you can delegate as well in here. So do you feel like, is there anything that could be an improvement on this, either visually or code base wise, that you would like to see or could be interesting, even trying to break it or change it?
So you're asking me that. Is there anything that I'd
Yeah.
like to see?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what, in terms of different types of buildings, or different types
Different
of
types of building. Yeah, gameplay feature, UI feature. Obviously, we have different things. We have production tasks. We have market prices. So there is a market fluctuation when it comes to sell your products.
Yeah.
You have a research tree where you can choose different things, and as you're locking them, that's a requirement for the next phase, and so on and so on. So it's already growing quite big. But let me think of something. Let's say I'm gonna do something here that might be very hefty, but I'm gonna say
You might need
I
to
want to.
make Claude just a bit bigger,
Yeah, of
so
course.
people can see. Yeah, that's it.
I want to introduce seasons. That's it.
Wow,
I'm
really?
only going to say that.
You can be as high level as that.
I want to introduce seasons in the game, which affects the growth of the crop and other features you decide. I'm just gonna say that and see what
Really?
happens. Yeah, because it's so the reality is right behind Claude that everybody who doesn't have a very complex understanding on how LLMs and AI agents work together see them as almost predictive of able to see what's going to happen next, or use the information they have to predict options. And that's why people are using them for example, trading. But the reality is these apps unable to see the futures, they are able to see different patterns.
Yeah.
And they build their prediction on those patterns. But some patterns, like video game structure or appropriate game infrastructure or mechanics, are easy to understand. But something as volatile as market fluctuation is a very different cup of tea.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
so in this scenario, we can rely on Claude to tell me what exactly he or she or whatever gender we want to assign to Claude, or we don't, and keep it non-binary.
Yeah.
Want to introduce into the game that would increase on it, and it's going to think about many things. I have a thorough understanding of the code. Let's design an implementation plan. It comes together with an implementation plan. It asks for permissions. Obviously, my game is designed around AI GDLC, so AI code, AI game development lifecycle, and that has appropriate documentation in there already that guides it a little bit, because I want to avoid hallucination. It needs to follow the same game structure and game design that we wanted to point out to. Happy to move on to a different subject if you want to. Just wanted to see if you wanna look into this a little bit more.
I think that this is amazing. Because the one thing that I've always been quite, what is it, had questions about is we were talking about creativity, weren't we, last week, when we were talking about the movie industry, and
Yes.
if we introduced AI into replacing CGI and maybe even replacing characters, by having such a high level loose prompt about can you add new seasons into this game that affect the crops, are you actually delegating the whole creativity around that scientific subject matter, to something else? So it's like an approximation of what it is that you actually want, and you're accepting, of what it's telling you. It's not necessarily your season and the way that you envisage it. It's actually the AI season, and you're saying to it, "Oh, well done for creating a season. Yeah, I'll accept that."
Indeed, indeed, and that's the interesting part. Usually, with a very broad prompt like this, you're setting up yourself for an hour long of back and forth until you reach the point where it's actually
Yeah,
something that you want to achieve, because the AI will think about, okay, he probably wants Gerge probably wants 4 seasons. Gerge probably wants at least a winter, and an autumn and a summer, or something like that. Um, but the reality is, it, seasons are already in my mind, and it's part of the whole game process, because we talk about growing crops for whiskey, growing crops for wine, so on and so. They all grow in different parts of the world.
yeah,
There is different weather conditions. They're going to be introduced. What I want to represent here, when I envision what those seasons going to look like, and what they're gonna impact in the game, and how they're going to impact it, I can easily plug it in here and get a good frame of design that I can
yeah,
build my designs on. Because I avoid using tokens. For example, in video game, let's say you have a 2D game where you run around in like Super Mario. You press D, you run right. You press A, you run left. But there are float variables that define your speed that you run at. Now you could ask Claude to change that for you and use up I don't know, a smaller town's water reserves to get the answer. But you could also just simply go in and change the float from 100 to 75.
yeah, yeah,
And I think that's a very important part of it, of how you utilizing these tools, because saving tokens is not just saving money; it's saving. It has an impact on the environment as well.
yeah.
Um,
That's what I found, because I can still see that, or at least I think it's still thinking. Or does it actually have a plan now? Where do we get to? It says that it's crystallizing on your terminal. So I guess
indeed,
it's still
indeed,
thinking things through. Um, but what I found, and this is massively complex. I mean, what I did, with OpenClaw on, the Raspberry Pi, fair enough. I'm not going to put it down, because building something in hardware and getting something running, it does bring you a lot of joy. But this is deeply scientific. Simulating seasons and crop growth. I mean, that's massively complex. But you can go through many cycles of this, and I had to go through many cycles of reviewing how Claude was building on the Pi, and sometimes it worked, but I would actually say probably 60% of the time it didn't. And you would test something on the Pi, and you would say to it, "Oh, that's not actually working," and then it's almost like it says, so Claude kind of like, scratches his own head and says, "Oh yeah, I did actually make a mistake," and it kind of like goes around that whole
yeah,
kind of like
indeed,
development loop again.
indeed.
And
And I think skills. That's how skills tie up into the whole situation. When you define
yeah,
different skills and accept as criteria when utilizing those skills and a measure of success, you need to have those, otherwise you get into this loop. But let's quickly go through the plan,
yeah,
and then
yeah.
I'm gonna
Let's do
show
it.
you something different from this. I'm not gonna push through this right now, because this probably would take me hours to actually push through this plan. But so the context it came up with, that the game tracks a date but has no season mechanics. Crop produced at the constant state year round. This planet a season system that derives seasons from existing months, primarily affecting agricultural production and secondary affecting maintenance costs, market prices, and logistic speeds.
Yeah,
Now obviously, so it's basically going to say during winter you're gonna drive slower. That's what it's gonna say. And it's really interesting that it sets up obviously in my time zone, so this wouldn't be appropriate for Australia or
no,
New Zealand. Um, It's going to look at the season manager GD. So GD is GD. GD script is the programming language of Godot engine, which is very similar to Python. And basically, it's going to go through a plan of what files it's going to modify. So those current features that I have in my game going to adhere to this new system. And it's going to walk through the different scenes. Different scenes are the different loading screens within Godot engine. So when you switch from one map to another, you're probably going to switch scenes.
Yeah.
And it's set up in implementation order, verification. And the verification is something I define that you cannot say that something is completed until I tell you it's completed. So it gives me verification. Because I think as we go forward in development, I firmly believe that unit testing is getting, and I'm gonna be wrong in a lot of use cases, but in this one, game development, unit testing your code is not as important as functionally testing it. You need to be able to see it yourself if it's delivering the same product.
Yeah.
And this is a very similar. This is AIGD LC basically. What we're seeing here is I'm trying to build on the memory I defined for this tool, because at this point the reason why I can come up with this plan, because some of the parts of this what we see here, what files to modify, the verification, the implementation order that is not talking about pushing to GitLab, GitHub at the moment, is all around what I define include the MD file as the context and the constraints around how it can operate within this project.
Yeah. I mean that's
Yeah.
So are you versioning? Do you have version control on this?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would imagine
Absolutely.
that you do, because making the decision to actually implement this plan, that's actually quite a bold task, isn't it? And to some extent, I mean, I don't know what plan you're using on Claude. It may be that you're pro, or it could be that you're max, depending on how bought into it you are.
I'm on max.
Yeah, so certainly on pro, you get a certain amount of tokens. I can't remember how many tokens it is. I mean, it takes you quite far. But if you're implementing something quite, complex like this, it's highly likely that you're going to max out on those tokens and maybe do it over a couple of, sessions. And so you're going to need to be quite honest, I don't think that you would implement something like this on pro. You've got to be really bought into, what it is that you're doing, knowing that, this could take many hours, I would imagine, to implement, and then test. I don't even know how you would test this.
It's playing the video game. It's one of those jobs that if I wouldn't be interested in video games would be immensely boring, because I'm clicking the same button hundreds of times and trying to see if I get a different result when I should really just get one result.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to show you is around, let me just bring it through. I am not seasoned at all in, you won't be able to log in here. The viewers won't be able to log in here, but this is deployed in AWS. And this is one of my other personal projects that I've been working on. And I just saw that you switched cameras, which is insane. I didn't know you had two cameras.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. You need to put one outside of your shack as well, and just randomly through the window you just show up. I think that would really change it up. So this is one of my passion projects, and you're mentoring me on this as well. So I redesigned it to rebranded it from Protocore to Dagon, from the Lovecraftian universe. That's one of the deities. No other reason, just I really like that. I really like that word, and rebranded it. And basically, I'm not, what I'm trying to do is I'm not trying to advertise this right now. It's more than talking through it. I think it's a very interesting topic to talk about how communication ties into the a new software engineering world that we're in. And I think when we talk about communication, we need to now think about communication between different AI systems. Now, what I want to really point out here is that MCP servers are handled as some sort of silver bullet still in the community, where it's an all-knowing, all-connecting protocol that allows you to use any tools you want. But the reality is that and I asked Claude this, and MCP servers were released into the open source community by Anthropic and was developed in November 2024 and released in 2024. Claude told me that security and governance around MCP is lacking. And that's the nicest way to put it. I've been working on a way to change that, or just simply not even change that myself, because I don't think I can change it. I don't think I have the ability or the intellectual prowess to change that myself. But I've been trying to advertise it, that I think somebody at some point going to have to start thinking about how we're managing these different protocols, how we're allowing them to operate on our system, how we're allowing them to access different things, and how we're allowing, for example, onboarding them and working around continuous security. And the fact that I was able to build something that I can demo and I could call a prototype around, for example, I have a protocol catalog where I can install MCP servers, ACP protocols, or A2A protocols that work different way. Okay, that's not deployed in a moment, but through AWS, an environment that I have virtually no knowledge of, because I just started to work with AWS in the last 2 months. But I was able to build up such a knowledge that what's an AKS cluster, what's Kubernetes, what's VPC, so on, and deploy it, and now it's running there. Cost effective. It costs me around 50p a month at the moment, somehow. Don't ask me how. It's really interesting. So obviously I mentioned a lot of things there, but I'm going to stop there. Just to give you a chance to
no, I think
in any way you want to.
So, the world of AI, especially around agentic, is introducing a lot more technology, or, a lot more, concepts that you need to understand, compared to when you were running cloud native, for instance. And MCP is, one of those technologies that has kind of like appeared. And people are, talking about it, but I'm not entirely sure that everybody understands, what it is, or, where it actually fits into, the whole ecosystem of AI.
Model context protocol.
Yeah.
I'm happy to give you a good analogy that I heard not too long ago. Basically, so when you have a tool in an environment where you're working, that you have n tool, and then you have let's say you have n AI systems, and you have n tool that you work with, and when you're introducing a new tool and you're interested in a new AI system or whatever, that's n times n the infrastructure problem. Now, MCP server basically is the same thing when the European Union standardized every single phone company and so on to use USB-C cables.
Yeah.
You have one cable, you can plug it into the to your house, and you can plug it into your phone, and it's charging. Same way, MCP server does the same thing. You can plug it into your system. You plug it into the AI tool that you're using. You plug it into Exa. You plug it into Blender. You plug it into OBS, Godot engine, anything, and it's configured in a way that it speaks the language that's going to be able to utilize those tools through the MCP server that's set up.
Right, I get it. So it's almost like an interoperability standard.
It's that's the interesting part. It solves some parts of the interoperability standards around tools, but it doesn't solve the problem around interoperability in the AI space between different protocols that's trying to So, for example, an MCP server cannot operate with an A2A protocol because the MCP server's infrastructure is set up and the language it speaks. So we're not talking about programming language. It could be anything, but basically that language it speaks is different because it's focusing on how Claude will talk to your Excel. An A2A protocol will focus on how two agents talk to each other. An ACP protocol is around agent communication protocol. So an MCP server will struggle to communicate with an A2A protocol.
Right. So MCPs, an agent to, some other type of interface, outside of an agent.
A database, a data set,
but not necessarily another agent.
No, not necessarily another agent. You're not likely going to use an MCP server to talk to. Did you say MCP server or?
Yeah, no, MCP. So I see. So there'll be an agent kind of like in the center, and then kind of like as the hub, and then as the spokes, there'll be kind of like different types of applications and infrastructure and software that agent can communicate to through the MCP protocol. And then the receiver on the other side of that will understand the interface of MCP. So the agent doesn't have to adapt itself to that particular piece of software. Their kind of interoperability between them is the MCP protocol. And so you speak to one, piece of infrastructure or software in the same way without the agent needing to change its own kind of context. Whereas A to A is kind of how agents speak to each other. So I suppose what you could do, you could have A to A. So you could have two agents speaking to each other, and then an MCP server for one of those agents that takes what that second agent says and then puts it kind of like into a system via the other agent using A to A, which then uses MCP in order to put its output somewhere.
Indeed. Right. And the good question is, so we want to cut out the middleman, which is the human between a tool and the agent with an MCP server. But if we are utilizing, for example, Google has a currency conversion tool that's an A2A protocol that you set up with your Gemini API key. It's completely free, and you can set that up and use it to get live conversion or currency rates, and you can get that through a very simple API as well. But this just for the sake of the example, an MCP server won't be able to connect to that A2A protocol. The user would have to. So we are back at where we were before, when we have to, if we want to track this in an Excel sheet, but we don't want to manually write it down, we can't connect the A2A protocol to an MCP server. We're going to have to talk to it ourselves and then communicate to the agent, which will talk to the MCP server.
Yeah.
Now the question is, do they have to talk to them to each other at all? Or is that really a use case that we were going to see to come up at all? I've been asking myself that question for a long time because I feel like I've been trying to solve a problem that's not necessarily a problem, if you know what I mean.
Right. So the problem that you're seeing is there a use case where a human would want to connect to an MCP server without an agent? Is that right?
If is there a world where we want to utilize two different AI-related protocols, like an A2A protocol and MCP protocol, do we want them to talk to each other without us? Because right now, at this current state, they're unable to do that. They can't. The MCP, because it's MCP servers, I haven't found one, and there is no interoperability between different AI protocols like A2A, ACP, and MCP. MCP solve the problems around services and databases and different tools that you have. Like Cowork is basically builds on that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
That's my question. The question I'm trying to pose is,
I would say that there probably is, and it'll probably come down to cost, because the one thing that I'm learning is that tokens actually cost. There's a
Yeah.
cost associated, with all of those tokens that you're generating. And even if you're using, the way that you can experience this is, through a very basic project like the one that I'm running, and how many times, you have to wait for your pro plan to refresh before you can actually do the next iteration of build. And you think, oh, okay, I've got to wait for that to refresh. But if you put that down to money and, how many iterations of thinking that AI needs to do in order to get to the finished state, it soon racks up, and if I, need to do hops. So say, for instance, there's one piece of infrastructure that's talking on one protocol and another that's talking on another. And in order for me to be able to, get any form of information from one to the next, I have to speak to an agent that can interpret what I want via a different protocol. Then that's going to start costing, tokens, which, costs money. And so
Yep.
I think that there will be, and it'll probably be an efficiency driver, rather than a bringing together of all of these protocols because there's an agentic reason. It'll be, do we have to run so much hardware and do so much thinking in order to get to what we need?
Yeah.
And so it'll probably be, how can we reduce the cost, or how can we reduce the environmental debt, whatever it is, in
Indeed.
order to get this information out with, the least amount of hops.
Indeed.
Yeah, it's probably
I completely agree.
thing. Yeah,
I completely agree. So it comes around, and I think that's what people need to think about, is how we about governance around cost, governance around security,
yeah,
governance around infrastructure and enablement around all these tools.
And it could be that you start kind of bringing together some of these standards, so there aren't so many.
Indeed.
There might be one standard that, can define, all of the various different use cases and scenarios.
Indeed.
But I've noticed we're probably a little bit over the hour, and, we could do this again and again and again. So what do you want to do? Do you want to end it here and say goodbye? And then maybe come again, this time next week? I feel like we're refining, how we're, doing these episodes. It's totally up to you.
Do you have, let's both of us try to do 1 or 2 sentences on something that tomorrow, let's say if I want to have a coffee with somebody and I can tell them and try to blow their minds. It doesn't have to be around AI, but around something. Do you have anything to leave with the audience that they can take to for a morning coffee with somebody or in the elevator?
Well, as a result of what I've learned today.
No, you don't learn today, but in just general that you would like to share.
Yeah, I think so over the last week and also today, I think that people need to just get involved with AI. What I've learned today is, you're running a really complex game, but, some of the questions that you can ask the AI, it doesn't have to be that complex. Once you actually get involved, with Claude Code or, whatever, the services that you're running, it could be Kimi, because I've noticed that you can actually write code through Kimi, which is fascinating. You'll be into it and you'll be doing it and you'll be loving it. So maybe over coffee tomorrow, sit down with somebody, and if they're not doing it either, maybe, pick up a friendship and see if people can explore it together as a pair. And then, set a challenge. I mean, both you and I this time last week set each other a challenge. What are we going to bring this time next week? And without that challenge, I probably wouldn't have built this little server.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so I'm going to see how far I can take this little Raspberry Pi, and I'm going to see if I can refine my demos as well. And so
amazing.
Yeah. So number 1, find a buddy and start doing it. Number 2, set a challenge and, work towards that. How about you? What would you recommend somebody?
I know this is very AI focused, and I'm sure we're going to be able to change it up going forward. But I want people to to sit down at home, find a name that you really like, but don't take it, go creative, try to go away from the usual, try to be something mythological, something that has an oomph, and imagine that persona and build an actual agentic tool using one of the AI tools on one of the LLMs, for yourself, either, and then bring it along. Feel free to share the open source project on. I built Winston, and I shared it on LinkedIn, and I love Winston. It's named after one of the Overwatch characters. It's a very wise agent with a beautiful CLI tool, and it was a lot of fun. And you learn a lot in the process of building an agent, and you're gonna be able to say that, and you could find somebody tomorrow who could have a conversation with what that name means for you, and that could be the first inspiration for the week to build it.
I think that that's absolutely. So build your first agent. I'm going to see if I can get OpenClaw, doing a useful task, improve the efficiency, and other than speaking to me over Telegram, I'm going to see if I can get it, answering an email or whatever it needs to do. Whatever it needs to do, I'll see if I can get it there. So I think for me, doing this OpenClaw work is the work that is showing me how you can actually bring multiple agents together in order to fulfill and string together a series of tasks. And that's what we need to get to. So that's my, personal ambition for this time next week.
Perfect.
Right. So maybe, Gergely, we can say goodbye to people. It's been really good, sharing this Sunday with you. Thank you for making yourself available. It's been a real eye opener. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for having me, James.
Yeah, and we'll see everybody next Sunday for another engineering signal. Thank you, everybody, and see you all soon. Bye bye.